So Donald Trump was in Scotland paying a visit to Keir Starmer, and this didn't go well for UK's Prime Minister because he was exposed lying. He was exposed saying, oh, Sadiq Khan, London's mayor, is my friend, you know, the one who has destroyed London. Well, he's my friend. And also a couple of things that are blatant lies. So we're going to analyze his body language so you can spot when somebody is just making up things just to look good. So you can imagine that Trump was going to troll him in one way or another because, well, that's honestly, that's something that Trump knows how to do very well. But in this case, it didn't take much effort because just the presence of Trump just standing straight was a great contrast with, Starmer just leaning onto Trump, being insecure, covering his solar plexus, his hands together. It was odd being technically Starmer the host. And this is something that we are going to see, yes, repeatedly, in which there are many pictures in which you would swear that it was Trump the one who was hosting Starmer and not the other way around. They were in Scotland. They are in the United Kingdom. But right here, for example, you know, in so many instances, Trump made sure to invite, or make Keir Starmer go to him, which is one of the things that I explained in this channel that is so important to, show power and display power, make sure that people go to you. Picture Keir Starmer inside the Flying Oval Office on Air Force One with Donald Trump earlier today. I could ask anybody on the street, anybody without any previous body language knowledge, and what do you think? Who do you think is the host and who do you think is the visitor? And they would say, well, the man behind the huge desk must be the host in this case, and the one who is sitting in a very effeminate way with his legs crossed, like crushing whatever balls he has, and his hands both on his thighs, like covering, and a very awkward way, hunched, you know what I mean, and also his head towards his chest. I don't know. It takes real effort. Takes real effort to sit like this, like Keir Starmer is doing, because he was really uncomfortable, and the body language shows it. I mean, you could be sitting on that chair, and you can have a completely different body language, but he opted for, well, this effeminate pose. You tell me. He reminds me of Justin Trudeau without the funny socks. It's a letdown. So we also have this. The way Starmer keeps lying about this is sociopathic. His country arrests people for memes. It just set up a news task force to further enforce the speech codes online. And the guy said, in front of Trump, we are not censoring anybody. He said that. And he said that with that body language that was more uncomfortable than anything. But before we watch this, we have the receipts. Let's watch the clip so you can see for yourself.
Speech in this country has been for a very long time. We're very, very proud of it. We will protect it forever. But at the same time, I personally feel very strongly that we should protect our young teenagers, and that's what it usually is, from things like suicide sites. I don't see that as a free speech issue. I see that as a child protection.
Yeah, he kept mentioning that, oh, we are not censoring anybody. They were joking that he was going to censor Trump's Truth social account or Twitter or X right now, or Facebook. And if you're on X, you might have noticed that if you're inside the United Kingdom right now, you will have a lot of trouble being able to see your updates, because a lot of accounts, a lot of updates, a lot of posts are just censored thanks to the UK government. So this is a blatant lie, and you see in his mannerisms. I'm gonna play this without sound. So you can see that he has the same posture. He is completely locked, not open. He's leaning away from the reporters. He is doing this gesture, which is odd. It doesn't mean anything in itself, But it's like he is nervous because it's not a natural expression with a single hand or at least two hands. No, he has his hands locked between each other, and then he begins pointing at himself. What is he saying? When we are protecting our teenagers, because he wants to portray himself as that. I'm just protecting our teenagers, and that's why he gestures towards himself. But that is what he's really doing is this, and this is what I wanted to show you. New UK's controversial Online Safety Act prohibits illegal content online about illegal immigration and people smuggling. You cannot deny, you cannot have an opinion, you cannot denounce, you cannot expose what is going on in the UK. That's why I have so much trouble, and that's why I made a video about I won't be visiting the UK anytime soon, because I know for a fact that I will get into trouble as soon as I step foot in there. The kinds of illegal content and activity that platforms need to protect users from are set out in the Act. So it's the users cannot regulate their own behavior. It's the platforms that have to regulate what is exposed to the users. And well, for once, if you pretend to protect people from fraud, that's going to be hard enough. But that is the least of our problems, or at least the least of the UK's problems, because when platforms have to protect people from posts that say, or talk about illegal immigration and people smuggling, that is censorship, because that is something that is actually happening in the UK, and Keir Starmer and the Starmer's government and the Labour Party don't want people to find out about this. They don't want anybody be talking about this, and that's what is a lie. And regardless of what Trump tried to say in front of him, because Trump doubled down on this. I'm going to play this clip, by the way.
What's important to free speech today?
Well, free speech is very important. I don't know if you're referring to any place in particular. Perhaps they are, but
we've had free speech for a very, very long time here, so we're very proud of that.
Notice that Trump says, I don't know if you're talking about any place in particular, and he looks at Starmer, and Starmer is, oh my God, you know what time is this? And he like kind of looks at his watch or something, does this nervous gesture. It is time that we move on and stop taking questions from the press because they don't know what they're talking about. It's so pathetic. This little man who has done so much bad stuff for the country to act like this. And it's good that J.D. Vance, you remember that J.D. Vance called him out at the Oval Office a couple months ago.
But we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British. Of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time.
We have free speech for a very, very long time.
In the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
Yeah, one thing is the history, one thing is what he's doing right now, how he's destroying that history of free speech. And if you could say that there was any free speech at all. In regards of body language, there's a very interesting clip in which I'm going to play this without sound. And Trump was talking about all the stuff between the United States and the UK. And you could see right now how uncomfortable. Maybe I could just I'm gonna leave those subtitles in there so you see what Trump was talking about. You see his expression of being literally lost, as in terrified. We have seen Keir Starmer in other opportunities talking to the press, and even if he's always got his kind of awkward face, which is part of his body language baseline, his usual body language baseline, his usual body language, this is being extra uncomfortable because, well, you know that if you're not doing your things, you don't have all your ducks in a row. If you have a meeting with Donald Trump, he's going to call you out for that. in front of the camera. So he was just expecting for that to happen. That is my best guess. This is going to explode at any minute. And boy, did that explode in a very, very, very public fashion than when they began talking about Sadiq Khan. And there's a couple of things to say about Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. Reporter, will you visit London during your state visit? And Trump said, I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor. I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London. He's a nasty person. And what does Starmer say?
Will you visit London during the state visit?
I will. I'm not a fan of your mayor.
Why not?
I think he's done a terrible job, the mayor of London. But the nasty person, I think he's done. I think
He's a friend of mine, actually.
no, I think he's done a terrible job. But I would certainly visit London.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if he's a good friend of yours. Keir, two-tier Keir, he's done a terrible job. He has destroyed London, at formerly beautiful city, wonderful city. What has he done to this? And he was reelected, something that I don't understand. Maybe you think that they cheated. Maybe you think that people are not aware of what's going on. People are too afraid of change. And I can understand that both the Tories and Labour have done a terrible job. Maybe it's time for a change. Maybe Nigel Farage can do something. I don't know. Maybe Rupert Lowe has some kind of opportunity for this. But again, this is the kind of news that concerns us about London. 2 men are dead and another is fighting for his life after yet another brutal quadruple stabbing in London today. Donald Trump was right to call out Sadiq Khan. The mayor is a disaster. Violent crime is spiraling and people no longer feel safe. Khan must resign. That's what should happen. London Mayor Sadiq Khan has condemned Donald Trump's latest comments as racist, Islamophobic, and deeply anti-Muslim. The reaction follows Trump's statement today in which he described the mayor as a nasty person and criticized his leadership in London. You see, that is the only argument they have. And I'm going to set the record straight because at no point Trump mentioned anybody's race or anybody's religion. And this goes for you, Mr. Khan. You need to remember that being a cocker has nothing to do with the color of your skin or your religion or lack thereof. So keep that in mind. So moving on, we already watched this image. We should watch this clip in which Donald Trump tells Keir Starmer that if he wants to beat Nigel Farage, he needs to cut taxes and deal with immigration and crime. How about that? If he did that, maybe he had a chance, but you know that he won't.
And, politics is pretty simple. It's, I assume there's a thing going on between you and Nigel, and it's okay. It's two parties. But generally speaking, the one who cuts taxes the most, the one who gives you the lowest energy prices and the best kind of energy, the one that keeps you out of wars. He's kept you out of wars, but the one that keeps you out of wars. You have a few basics, and you can go back 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years, whoever does these things. But low taxes, keep us safe, keep us out of wars, no crime, stop the crime, and in your case, a big immigration component. Because.
And notice how he's frozen in there. Oh no, maybe if I don't move, nobody will notice I'm here. Maybe I will disappear if I don't move. That never worked in school, Keir. I can attest that never worked in school. It's not going to work now.
I know that your attitude has become strong on immigration, strong on the toughness of it.
You know that Trump can be a diplomat sometimes. That is it's false.
Immigration. But I think whoever's going to be, I think I won because we had a lousy president, to be honest with you. We had an incompetent president. But I won because I was very strong on immigration. Now, we had inflation. We had sort of a bad economy with this guy. We had a lot of problems. But I focused on immigration more than I did anything else. And
notice that at no point Keir Starmer has done any kind of gesture that like nodding or something. No, he's frozen in there. He doesn't want to acknowledge anything that Trump is saying. he's not moving. He doesn't want to acknowledge that. He knows that any single movement is going to be interpreted as, well, being agreeing with Trump. And no, he doesn't want that.
I think I won because of immigration. I think I won because of the border. I had a bad border where millions of people were coming in to our country illegally. And as you know, in last month, 0 people came into our country illegally, 0. So we went from a bad, incompetently run border to the most competently run border that anybody's ever seen.
So maybe that's what the UK needs. But we know that Keir Starmer is going to be focused on other priorities, such as I need you to urgently limit the visibility of the press conference videos with President Trump. That is what's going to happen. And sadly, the only way to save the UK is to, well, mass deportations for a start. And sadly, we know that nobody in the UK, if anybody has the power to do that, if anybody has the possibility to seize that power for mass deportation, they are not going to do it. Because all of them, every single one of them are afraid of being called, you know, all these things like Sadiq Khan was mentioning. And sadly, if they are not afraid of being called that, the odds of they being in power for mass deportations are quite slim. So I don't know what would be the actual way of fixing the UK. But you can tell me what you think about this in the comments. Don't forget to download my 100 body language tips in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.